What you focus on can prevent you from being happy. Hi, I'm Dan Ross, the Anxiety Helper, and in this video I'm going to talk about the things that you focus on in your mind will determine the direction of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and how you can take back control of those thoughts in your mind and then put your focus onto something happier so you can be less unhappy and more happy. So how this works is that neuroscience in recent years and decades has discovered through functional MRI and through other processes and studies that when you focus on a certain thing, it activates a certain neural network inside of your mind. So those neurological connections that determine your thoughts, your feelings, and basically your overall results in life. So when you focus on something positive, for example, you might have a positive feeling, right? This makes sense. When you focus on something negative, you have a negative feeling. So the key here is that this is actually under your control, and I think it's often something that isn't taught often enough, that it's your mind, so you get to control your mind. And I think the issue is nobody has taught us how, or it's very rare to learn how. So one of the things you can do, first of all, is let's just have some awareness for the fact that you can control the thoughts inside of your mind and thus how you feel. And one of the ways you can do that, for example, is if something negative happens, often people think of that as big inside of their mind, right? It's a big thing. Hey, they say that's a big thing that happened. And their language will even describe that. Yeah, that big thing happened and I just haven't been the same since. I haven't been happy since that. So I was working with somebody recently who had a bad breakup, right? And that was still very big in her mind. So it seems metaphorical, but you can literally like shrink that idea down, shrink that memory down, shrink that thought down so that it becomes less of a big thing. It becomes a smaller thing because in our language, when we've kind of done that, also represents that like, yeah, that wasn't really a big thing, or yeah, that just seems smaller or further away. So this is just one way that you can kind of, one, be aware that you can take back control of it. Like if it seems big, you can actually make it smaller. And how to do it is to actually make it smaller, right? So it just doesn't seem as big of a thing. So it's a great example of how to kind of take back control of your mind. Now, focus can come in a number of ways. And so there's the things that we see in our mind, and not everybody's like a visual thinker, so that's fine. There's the things that we hear, and there's the actual feelings that we have. So when you think about it in sort of those different chunks and those different buckets, that you can kind of do a little bit of an inventory inside of your mind to be aware of what's actually going on, because often these processes that are making us unhappy are unconscious, right? Most people don't wake up in the morning and pull out their to-do list and say, oh, think lots of negative thoughts and be unhappy. It's not something that you're consciously creating. It's something that just seems to be happening. Some people might just be aware of the feeling. And so then you might take that inventory and might ask yourself, well, what am I focusing on that's making me feel unhappy? And by the way, once you get those answers and you can start to clear out those negative things that keep you unhappy that you're focusing on, you can ask yourself a better question, which is, what can I focus on that will actually make me happy? So just becoming aware, it's making those unconscious processes conscious. That's what a question like that does for you. You know, what am I focusing on that makes me unhappy? And so in the case of the relationship thing that my client was talking about, it was a sense of loss. Like I had this great thing and it's gone away, right? And then that person did something that, you know, made me feel really bad instead of making that big in their mind. So it's discovering these unconscious processes and making them conscious so that you can change them. Now, there's a part of your mind called the reticular activating system. It's in your brainstem, and it determines, based on what you focus on and what's important to you, what actually gets through into your conscious mind, because we have the equivalent of about 2 million bits of information per second coming into our unconscious mind. It comes into our brain from all of our different senses. So we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, touch, right? Think of all the skin receptors all over your body and everything. And your conscious mind can only manage about 7 pieces of information consciously at one time. That's why phone numbers are like 7 digits here in the US, right? If I gave you a 20-digit phone number and asked you to repeat it back to me, you probably couldn't do it. If I gave you a 7-digit phone number and said, hey, repeat it right back to me, you could, because your conscious mind could manage that amount of information. So the reticular activating system determines, based on your beliefs and your values and what we call reference experiences, so experiences that happened in the past, your reticular activating system determines what to pass along to your conscious mind. It determines what's important to you. So for example, right now, you're probably not focusing on your right big toe. And now that I mention it, it comes into focus. You might feel it or sense it and just notice, oh, that's there. It seemingly it wasn't there because your reticular activating system was saying, hey, that's not important. So that's why what you focus on determines what you feel and kind of how you live your life. So this is something where, again, we're not taught that we can take back control of that. So if you're feeling unhappy, then you can ask yourself the question, like, what am I focusing on that makes me unhappy? If you want to be happier, what can I focus on that would make me happier? So there's the how you focus on it. So if you want to make negative things smaller in your mind and you want to make positive things bigger, that's a kind of a how to change it. And then there's the what you focus on, because in any situation you can focus on your big toe or you can focus on, your right wrist, right? So something happens and sometimes we find the worst in it. So for example, with my client, we did some clearing work, of course, to help her shrink down those things in her mind. But then there was also the focus on, well, there were some things that really weren't very good with that particular relationship. And I'm going to focus my energy on the next person who will actually have more of those qualities that I want and will treat me the way that I want to be treated. So it's changing that focus from the negative to the positive. So just notice that this type of focus change can change how you experience life. And to go deeper into this, I'm going to be talking in the next video about how our beliefs determine what we focus on and thus how we feel in life. So I will see you on that video and we'll talk about beliefs. And I'm Dan Ross and I'll see you there.